So then we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:05. So yeah, take it away, Travis.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to kick things off with a panelist in joining us tonight, and thank you, Tim, for taking the time out of your night to join us. From PAR, we had some pretty good conversations in regards to Lumblatt and the landfill. And Tim's got obviously an expertise. I'll let him talk a little bit about his background, and then I'll let him take it from there as far as advisement on options for dog park and what costs, options, all that fun stuff. And Tim, I'll let you take it over.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. My name's Tim. I'm an engineering consultant. I'm a civil engineer. I've been working with the town of Southborough on various types of civil engineering projects now since probably 2007. So about 17 years. Working with the town at the Lundblatt, what you guys call the Lundblatt field, I call it the Parkerville landfill, since about 2018. We got involved with the Parkerville landfill back in 2018 to do what's called post-closure monitoring. So we go out there and we do annual groundwater monitoring around the landfill, quarterly gas monitoring. We do inspections of the landfill, and we write reports on a quarterly and annual basis to the DEP about the condition of the landfill. So that's a little bit about what I do for the town right now relative to that field. And I work on landfills across Massachusetts and Rhode Island. It's a specialty of my firm and a specialty of my services that I provide.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, and me and Jen, you can elaborate too. Obviously, I've gotten the short version of the history for the dog park and why we wound up at Lundblatt. And we talked to Tim about options as far as, because I think we all talked about the certificate or COI being something we need that we can't come up. Screaming kids in the background.
No worries.
So we talked about Tim and options as far as what we have, and we talked to Tim about the grant that we're kind of under a timeline with to get a design and start construction with. And Jen, do you want to elaborate a little bit more? I feel like I'm not doing a good job with it.
No, it makes sense. I think that since we last spoke, Travis and I also met with Bill from DPW, talk more about this, understand it. And where we kind of landed is that in order to move forward and do construction on top of here, we will have to produce some sort of certificate. And since we can't, we'll have to redo the testing. And the testing is what sounds like could be $100,000 or so. So, and in talking to that's when with Travis, we were hoping to talk to Tim more about like what to explain to the whole commission, what does it look like to try to move forward with any sort of new construction on top of Lundblatt? And like, what would that mean? And what are we looking at costs? Like, is this really going to be like $100,000 to better understand where we're at? Because today we don't really have the funding for this. We are hoping to use a grant for a dog park, but that grant for the dog park is not going to cover all these other fees. So we're hoping just to have a better conversation about like, what does it look like? How do we move this forward?
Sure.
Yeah, Johanna. Sorry, Johanna.
No, I just had a question because Tim, thank you for joining us tonight. In your introduction, you said that you go out to Lundblatt and you do annual testing. So the type of testing that we're talking about that would cost approximately maybe $100,000, is it the same type of testing that you already do on an annual basis, or is this additional testing above and beyond what you already do?
It would definitely be above and beyond. It's a totally different kind of testing that we would have to do.
Okay.
And if you'll give me a couple of minutes, I'll fill in the committee a little bit about kind of what we're up against here. So this landfill is in sort of a unique position. We're in a little bit of uncharted territory here with this particular landfill. So this, it's a regular municipal solid waste landfill, right? That just town trash was buried here for years. It was closed back in the 90s. And by closing it, what they did back then is they would essentially shape it and then they would put a landfill cap on top of it. And that's an engineered system, right? It's got multiple layers of material put in a certain order. It keeps it keeps surface water from getting into the trash, keeps air from getting into the buried waste, keeps decomposition down to kind of a minimum. And then they put soil and grass on top of it. Okay. And so when they constructed it, and we have every reason to believe it was constructed correctly when they did it, but what they were unable to produce, or what they didn't produce at the time, was this particular closure report that the state requires. So this is going back almost 30 years. They did produce this, it's called a CQA report, which basically says that all of the engineering documents for closure were followed during construction, right? That they did the welding of certain seams correctly, that they did compaction in certain areas correctly, that the material they used was of the proper specification, right? They didn't produce that report at the end of the project. But for some reason, DEP gave them their closure certificate and allowed them to move into what's called post-closure, the post-closure period, which is what we're in right now. It's a 30-year period. And that starts the post-closure monitoring, which is groundwater monitoring and inspections and gas monitoring. And that's what the town does right now through my farm. But it came to light recently where the DEP started going through old records and said, hey, we don't have this report from the town. Can anybody produce this report? The town looked through their files. They couldn't find anything. We looked through some of the town's files. We couldn't find it. The DEP looked through their files. They couldn't find this report, right? Again, we believe everything was done properly, but there's no report documenting it. So the position that the town is in right now is the town doesn't have a proper closure sort of paperwork trail that says that this was closed properly. All of the monitoring that we have been doing for the last 6 years indicates that this cap is functioning properly, that's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But again, there's this paper trail that's missing. And so the state would really like some evidence that this landfill was closed properly, okay? But they also recognize that that would be a significant burden to go back and try to reproduce this testing data, particularly given the sensitivity of the cap, right? You really don't want to disturb the cap once it is constructed. So to go back in time and to produce this data after the fact is very, very difficult, and they're sensitive to that. So kind of the way we left it with the state was to say, look, we'll write you a letter, and this is a discussion I've had with Bill, we'll produce a letter that says, to the best of our knowledge, this has been closed properly. The data that we've been collecting over the last few years supports that. And that, essentially, as it exists today, the Parkerville landfill is more or less fine in the condition it's in. But where it gets a little bit, and this is where we're sort of in uncharted territories, where it gets sort of dicey is if we decide to do anything with the landfill, anything at all that it's not being used for right now, that's when the state may go back and say, all right, this letter no longer suffices. You have to actually produce data at this point if you want to reuse the landfill. So the DEP has a process, it's called a post-closure use permit, right? And if you change the use of a landfill, like you put a dog park on it, or you put solar panels on it, or you do anything with the landfill after it's closed, you have to go through this post-closure use permitting process. And in order for you to get through that process, you have to demonstrate that the landfill was closed properly when it was originally closed, right? That's part of the process. So we're caught in this little bit of a catch-22, where if we want to do the DEP is probably not going to make us do anything right now, but if we wanted to do something, right, and we wanted to go through the post-closure use process, we would have to go back in time and we would have to demonstrate to them through actual testing that this landfill has been closed, that it was closed properly 30 years ago. And again, just to reiterate why that's difficult to do, this is an engineered system on top of this landfill, right? It's got multiple layers. To do the testing after the fact would be destructive, right? We would actually have to go in and we'd have to start digging up parts of this landfill. We'd have to dig down to the impermeable layer, which is the real engineered part of this cap. And we would have to start doing destructive testing of that layer, right? Which means that when we're done, we would have to start repairing this layer that's under there. We'd have to start putting the material back in the same order it came out. It gets very tricky, right? And it, like I said, it's destructive. We would actually be penetrating parts of the cap, and that's something you don't want to do on a landfill. You don't want to penetrate the cap. So the testing gets complicated, the restoration would get complicated. It's to my knowledge, DEP has never made anybody do this, meaning that there isn't a playbook to go by. There isn't a map that we can follow to say, all right, this is exactly how you do it 30 years after the landfill was closed. So we would have to work through this with the state. And that's why, you know, that number of like $100,000 was thrown out there. This could get very complicated, right? This could be a very complicated process to demonstrate to the state that, in fact, this landfill was what we sort of already know is that this landfill was closed in accordance with the engineered documents that were provided at that time. So it's sort of a long-winded answer to what's going on out there.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.
And so I think where we stand is that, so for us to move forward, the dog park means we have to go through all of this testing on the cap and disturb the cap. So
Jen, before we go there, can we just ask a couple questions?
yeah, please go ahead.
So, so Tim, I'm sorry, I'm distracted doing a couple things here at once. So the use of the field as a dog park is a change in use. Is that definitive, or is that a gray space where we could get somebody to appreciate the fact that it's an open field? Yes, we'll be laying down some fences and some material to facilitate using a section of it for dogs, but in terms of sort of its overall purpose, it's a recreational use. It's not really materially changing in terms of structures being put on it and the like. So are we definitively in a case here where we would have a change of use?
So the DEP has indicated that if we were to, let's say, formalize this space as a dog park, I understand right now sort of informally it's kind of being used as a dog park, but if we were to formalize it and fence it in and add equipment for, you know, whatever equipment you add for dogs, that they would consider that a change of use. Now we can, I mean, we can always try to make the case to DEP, right? We can always plead with DEP to see it differently, but that's the indication they've given us so far.
I mean, that would seem to me to be, if nobody wants to entertain, no one's ever done this before, 30 years later, and no one really wants to entertain doing it at this point, that would seem to be the path with which everyone could sort of get there without, you know, too much disturbance, no pun intended. My second question, Tim, would be is, you know, the field itself, if we can't use it for a dog park and we wanted to you know, clean up its slope and whatnot to make more of it usable as recreational space, is that allowed, or would that also trip these issues?
That's a very good question. How many improvements to what scope of improvements can you do out there without tripping that change of use permit? We'd have to defer to the DEP on that. I mean, I'll give you an example. Right now, I know that the surface out there is not uniform and even, right? There's low spots, it has settled in spots, right? There is a possibility you could go back to the DEP and say, look, we want to essentially fix these low spots, right? And improve the grading because it has settled, right? And that will improve the function of the cap, right? If we smooth out these low spots and we get this to drain better, that will improve the function of this engineered system. And oh, by the way, that is going to make it a little bit easier for kids to run around on it, right? But if it's done as
dogs,
as a sort of a fix to something on the dogs or kids, whatever, that might fly. That they might say okay to that. You know, look, you're just repairing low spots that have settled over time. That's not really a change in use.
And Tim, in your experience working with DEP, I don't have a ton work. I don't unfortunately have a ton working with DEP. Like we do have a little bit of capital money for this dog park potentially. Like if we were to work with them and I don't know, down the line in the next year, 2, 3, they were more amenable to maybe adding a layer of fill to make like a smaller dog park in that area. Do things move generally quickly, slowly, in your opinion?
They're generally pretty responsive.
Okay.
You know, I don't think this needs to drag out over many, many months. They're generally pretty responsive. And again, it all comes down to the scope of what is proposed. The lesser the scope, the quicker their review. The more
Have they
complicated the
seen-
scope, you know, the
Have
longer.
they seen the scope that we laid out? Have they seen that scope?
Has the DEP?
Yeah.
That I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, like in full context, right? So how we got here was, as you noted, the slope of the field makes it unusable for gameplay on certain parts of the field.
Mhm.
And in order to make it, you know, playable, it would have taken some amount of investment to be able to do that. With that in mind, we considered some of the other options and requests that we've received over time as far as, you know, recreation space in town. The dog park was on the list. The discussion naturally went to, well, wait a second, maybe we can use that instead of investing a whole bunch of money to raise the level, even it out. The dogs don't care that there's a slope, and we can use the contours of, you know, the contours are fine. And would this potentially work, you know, for that particular space? And that seemed to be a cost affordable use for the property in its condition, you know, not requiring anything that would really disturb it or turn it over. If we put that fact pattern together, you know, do you have a sense at all? Is there, and again, taking into context the fact that it doesn't seem like anyone's experienced this in 30 years.
Right.
Is it worth sort of having that dialogue with them, or, you know, or do you think it's pretty clear cut and they're not going to want to entertain anything?
It's not that they won't entertain it. It's that they will make us jump through hoops to get it, right? The DEP, you know, we could tell the DEP, hey, we want to put, you know, a water park on top of this thing. And the DEP would say, show us your plan, show us how you're going to do it, how you're going to maintain the integrity of the cap, demonstrate that the cap was constructed properly, right? So it's not that they'll come out and say no, it's that they will ask a lot of questions about how we're going to do it, how are we going to protect the cap. You know, again, they're going to come back to demonstrate that the cap was constructed correctly. So we can always make our case and try to feel them out to say, all right, what is a scope that you guys would allow without really intensive testing here. But my sense is they may have reservations about a dog park in general. I don't own a dog, so I don't spend a lot of time at a dog park, but you know, what is the dog parks that you guys are aware of? What is the surface condition of those parks? My concern here specifically, not to try to ask too many leading questions, is the vegetation, right? The vegetation on the top of the landfill is part of the cap. It is part of the engineered system. We have to maintain vegetation over this because that's what keeps the soil in place, and the soil is what covers up a lot of the cap. So if for example, this dog park activity is going to ruin the vegetation, I don't know, dogs dig, dogs like to run around. If it does destroy the vegetation, that's a problem for the DEP, right? They're going to see that as an adverse impact to the.
I think we can certainly what would be put down. I can't remember the fill material that would be there, but it'd be permeable. Sort of wood chips, or I can't remember, Jen, what was the actual material that was.
I think it was something like that, wood chips or something.
Okay.
So it's not concrete, or even the pathways that we were proposing to put down to allow people to walk around would be that crushed stone material as well. So nothing, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of, yeah, you can't put concrete pad on top of this thing because you're gonna, not only are you gonna alter the how the water is gonna flow, but you're gonna add, you know, a distribution of weight problem as well, in all likelihood. So it would be and look, we could work with, you know, specifications too. So if they said, look, you can't use you have to use a permeable material that has no more than such and such a weight at such and such a piece of material, then love that feedback. I'm sure we could work with it to try to comply.
And additional fencing, would we put additional fencing around?
There would definitely be some amount of fencing, yes.
So it's going to be special fencing, you know, because you can't put posts through the landfill, right? That would penetrate the cap. So it would have to be like ballasted fencing, essentially fencing that relies on just, you know, dead weight to hold it in place and keep it from tipping over. But these things that you're describing, you know, wood chips, stone pats, those all sound very reasonable. It does not sound like an unreasonable use of this space. But I do think it will kick us into that permit, okay? I mean, and very specifically, the DEP set this permit process in place to make sure that the uses that go on top of these things are appropriate for an old landfill. So my sense is, based on what you described, that would definitely fall into this permit category, right? We're adding fill material on top, we're adding walking paths, you know, some fencing. They're going to consider that a reuse that needs to be permitted.
Would you say, are we at risk presently that they could tell us to stop using the field entirely because we don't have the permit? Or we can't
No,
produce
they've given us no indication of that, right? We do the monitoring, we do the reporting, the testing that we've done out there has all come back, you know, fine for that space, right? It doesn't represent a big risk, you know, having people up on top of that. So they've given no indication that that they would shut this down.
And the other curveball through all this is the timing just stinks, because we have to have the bidding done, or our bid package into the Stanton Foundation by May 1st, which makes it incredibly challenging to try to turn this around, given the circumstances, to try to turn that around to get that construction funding for that grant, which stinks. But I don't know if I see a way to turn this around in that quick of time to try to get the funding for the other piece of this grant, which the commission worked really hard on getting, and I wish we could deliver on. But we still have that 50 grand. Maybe there's a way we can do a scaled work with the DEP through the next few years, and then still work with capital funding that we do have, the little bit we have, to make a scaled down dog park down the line.
It doesn't,
I mean,
the feeling that I'm getting as I'm like hearing the feedback from Tim is that this is just not a great place to put it without having a lot of potential complications with the DEP. Like, I know we had hoped to use this space in Southborough for something more meaningful than what it's already being used for. But it sounds like there is a lot of potential, open Pandora's box if we have to do this additional testing. I don't know. It just doesn't sound like it's the best place to put the dog park. Is this, are any of these facts, does the engineer company who put the plans in place that we currently have right now, that drew up the plans for the dog park, do they know any of this? Was any of this part of the consideration when they were drawing up the plans to try to minimize overall impact to this land area?
everyone expected we had a permit. The fact
Okay.
that there's no permit
Yeah.
is a problem. You
Got
know,
it.
I'm of the mindset to force the DEP to say no. I mean, like, I want to see them say that because the alternative is it doesn't happen, like, or the costs become, almost untenable for what we're trying to do for a thing that we don't have any alternative space for. I'd almost say, like, hey, like, why are you being unreasonable here, since neither of us can produce the copy of the permit? Whose fault is that?
So, so I know, because I know we have those drafted plans. Like, I don't know. I mean, what would be the process for us to try to, like, just float those by DEP and see what they say to review that? Like, does that, I don't know. I'm just curious to see, like, is that a lot of work? Is that
Well, I mean,
expensive? Is that, yeah.
we could try to set up an informal meeting with the DEP.
Okay.
That would probably be the best way to do it.
Okay.
Otherwise, the other alternative would be to fill out the paperwork for the reuse permit and attach those plans, but that forces them at that point to review it like it's an application. You get into the process, right? It all becomes much more formal at that point. It may be better to try to have a conversation with them, and a meeting, and say, look, this is what we're trying to do. You tell us what we have to do to make this work, or if it'll even be allowable.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
What do we have to lose? That my point of view. What do we have to lose? Like, if it's informal and they give us some feedback, and maybe we get the right person on the right day, and we do, we do a few things and everyone feels good, and or if they say nah, it's not going to work, and then we're right back where we started, but at least we gave it a go.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, just to reiterate, DEP won't say no. They'll say, prove to us that you can do it. Prove, you know what I mean? So the onus is
Right.
gonna be entirely on us to
Yeah.
demonstrate that we can do it. And then if we don't, at that point, they'll say, look, you haven't demonstrated that this is gonna work.
Well, that gives us an action item as well to now go back to our designers and say, we have another condition to the design under this fact pattern. What changes would you make to the design that we could then proactively present to the DEP to address in advance any potential concerns?
Right.
Mhm.
It's a good point. So if you want this space to be a more usable space, anything, whether it be a dog park or a kid's soccer field or whatever it is, if you want it to be a more useful space to the town, you're going to have this conversation with DEP sooner, at some point, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm saying is that maybe it doesn't work out for this specific initiative, but it maybe gets the ball moving on, something that could be done at the site later, because it may be a slow
better
process, right?
understand. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions for Tim? Well, we have him here. I want to be respectful of his time. We've had him for about a half hour. Does anybody else have anything that you want to ask Tim?
I just have a question as to like who has ownership over setting up that informal meeting with the DEP if we're going to move forward with that plan. Is that you, Travis, or Tim, will you help facilitate that for us?
I mean, I can. I work for the town. I'm a consultant for the town, so I can help facilitate that.
Okay.
I think it's something we should bring Bill Cundiff in for sure.
Yeah,
He's done a lot of that coordination up to this point with DEP on this very specific issue.
I know Bill's worked very hard with DEP, so I was going to loop him in on this too.
Yep.
As well.
Yep. Okay.
Great.
I think it's a
Thank
good
you,
path forward.
Tim.
Yeah. Thanks.
Tim, thank you for your time.
No problem. Have a good night.
All right. So I think I saw we have Lisa.
Yeah,
in
do you
the
want to do?
audience. Yeah, let's jump to CPC for Lisa so then she can.
All
she can
right.
bounce.
And we have Christine on here too. She's going to give a brief program update. So
Cool.
just keep that on the back burner too.
Yep, we can do that.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for letting me come tonight. I know that you're stretched for time. That was quite an interesting conversation before me. I promise I will keep this relatively short. I have just a brief presentation. I just want to touch on a couple slides. I'm sure you'll understand why I'm here. So if I'm able to share my screen.
I just made you a co-host, so it's all yours.
Perfect. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So basically what I'm coming to ask you for today is I just want to share some information on a citizen's petition. Excuse me, one second. Alexa, stop. I don't think you need to hear the music in the background. Just the CPC did a citizen's petition for town meeting, and I'm here just to kind of touch on it with you, seeing as Recreation has a seat on CPC, and see if Recreation would be willing to give their support. So basically what we're doing is we're correcting the appointing authority for the Community Preservation Committee members. The purpose of this article is to correct the Southborough's bylaw and bring it back in line with Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, and give the appointing authority back to the boards and committees as attended by statute. Southborough adopted CPC by ballot in 2003. It was created by town meeting, Article 56 in 2004. The enabling legislation, Chapter 44B, does not require appointment by the select board, but by the boards, committees, and commissions the designees represent. It was never envisioned in 2003 that by giving the select board appointment authority, the board, committee, or commissions would lose their own authority given by statute. At the time, the thought was it would be a great collaborative approach to work together. So the enabling legislation of the CPA, the Community Preservation Act, specifically created appointing process for the Community Preservation Committee, CPC, and the required duties and authority of the committee to be independent of oversight from the regular practices and processes of municipal government. The intent was to create a mechanism where projects typically not funded, ones that have been historically left out of the regular budgeting process, and projects to preserve the character and vitality of our community that was lost due to lack of funding of projects. The CPA became a tool to preserve the special attributes of our communities, and the CPC were the overseers of the Community Preservation Act to make that happen. The legislation specifically prohibits funding many types of projects that traditionally get funded through municipal budgets. It's not intended to supplement municipal budgets for typical municipal projects. So this, this is actually Chapter 44B, Section 5A. I've highlighted specifically, they call out 5 boards, committees, and commissions that have the authority to self-appoint to the CPC. Towns can also add others to this, and town meeting gives them that authority as well. So there's 196 towns that make up the community that have adopted, the Community Preservation Act. 175 or 89.2% of them follow the Chapter 44B language to the letter, that the committees, boards, and commissions appoint, not town or city leadership. So out of the 21 that do allow representatives from boards and committees to appoint themselves, only 3 were created after 2006. So Westboro, Hopkinton, Northborough, Ashland, and Sudbury all follow the Chapter 44B language as written and only require the select board to appoint the at-large seats. There's been much contention, and I don't think I need to get into that recently about some of the appointments. And I just want to add as well that historically in the 20 years that CPA has been in Southborough, the board and committee and commission representatives, the designees from your own committee, have been appointed by the select board on the consent agenda as a formality. And that happened again on 8/6. A new SHOPSI member was appointed on consent, didn't have to come in for a discussion. These are the 21 cities and towns that either allow select board, city council, town manager, city manager, appointment of all of the members. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to change only section 916 of the CPC bylaw to take out one sentence under the currently the last sentence reads, the committee shall be appointed by the select board and consist of the following members. And there's been much contention around the word shall. Everyone believed shall means shall, and town council has opined that shall means can or may. So, and what we're looking to do is add the new language you see below highlighted, the committee, the composition of the committee, the appointment authority, and the term of office for the committee members shall be as follows. That's standard in almost 98% of the 175 towns that currently do their own self-appointing. And the only other thing we're changing under establishment, you'll see on this, is very similar to what I just showed you, where our current bylaw says that, you know, a member of all these different groups as designated by the committee and for their terms, it's been requested to add by a majority vote. So in this section, we're not changing anything other than by adding the words majority vote. So basically all we're doing at town meeting is we're taking out this first sentence out of this first paragraph, inserting the new sentence, and then we're adding the words by a majority vote. And that's basically all we're doing. These are just a kind of an overview of all the towns that have adopted CPA and cities that have adopted CPA. And lastly, over 100 residents signed a citizens petition for this town meeting. CPC decided to go the citizens petition route because we had no control as a committee for the warrant, and the select board could have decided to not put it on if they so chose. So we felt this way, getting 100 signatures showed that there was support in the community, and I think that sends a very clear message. Planning board has voted in support of this. The Open Space Commission, all their members signed the petition, so their official vote is forthcoming. I'm hoping tonight that Recreation would support this as well, and if not, that's okay. I appreciate you allowing me to come and kind of pitch this to you. I think it's we're at a crossroads, and I think statute gave authority to your commission as one to be able to appoint who you wanted. So any questions, or I'd be happy to go back to any of the slides if anyone has any questions on that as well.
Hey, Lisa, it's Johanna.
Hi.
Hi. Can you go back to the slide showing the sentence that's going to be changed?
Absolutely.
So just tell me the gist, like it would take me a little while to kind of like process and decompose, like what does changing this one sentence essentially do for the
So-
appointment process?
What changing this does is it brings us back in line with statute. The statute, if you look at the sentence as it currently reads, that the committee shall be appointed by the select board, the
Yeah.
statute doesn't have that requirement. The statute says, let me go back, I will. There you go. You'll see on this, I highlighted, recreation would fall under the Board of Parks and Commissioners.
Mhm.
So, as designated by the board, one member of the Board of Parks and Board of Park Commissioners established under Section 2 as designated by the board. So what that means is you, by statute, by law, have the authority to vote on a member, and that member should sit on CPC for recreation interests. And currently, what we have is, and again, back in 2003, when this was done, it was a collaborative effort, and the members that created and brought forward the CPC thought shall means that, you would make a recommendation of a designee and the select board would appoint them. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So
Okay.
all we're doing, Johanna, is adding the new language that the composition of the committee, the appointment authority, and the term of office shall be as follows. And that's going back to what our current bylaw says is, one member under number 5, one member of the Recreation Commission as designated by the commission for initial term. So it's giving you back the authority to choose a member, and that's making it consistent with 175 of the 196 towns.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I don't know if that was too long of an answer, but
Perfect.
any other questions? I mean, it's kind of cut and dry. It's just taking us back to what statute gave us the authority to do. That's all.
I guess one other question, Lisa. So are you looking for support from Recreation tonight as a committee, or are you asking each of us individually as 5 or 6 Disparate members to go and sign the petition as residents of the town, or both?
So the petition's been done, and that's how we needed 100 signatures on the petition to bring it forth to town meeting because it's a special town meeting. If we had
Mhm.
waited until annual, it would have only been 10 signatures. So the signatures have been turned in, which gave us the right to put this within the warrant. So what I'm asking is if Recreation would support this tonight.
So as a commission for us to take a vote whether or not we support this. Yep.
Yes.
I mean, from my point of view, we made a decision. We wanted Kristen to represent us on CPC, and the select board refused to appoint her, which I was shocked and couldn't believe that. Right. So I think that I think if we've been appointed to this commission, then as a commission, we should be able to decide like who has availability, who has interest, who's ready to go serve on these. And I think if the select board believe enough in us to appoint us to Recreation Commission, they should not block us from then also volunteering for other boards and commissions. Because I know Rec has multiple seats that like we can't fill because like, we can't all take on 6 other boards and commissions as well. So like I'm in full support of this. I believe if they believe in us to be on the commission, then they should not have a problem with us participating in other subcommittees. So
Yeah, I
second
agree.
that as well, John.
okay. And then did well, I'm not sure if Dom is still available.
Can you hear me, Jen?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm happy to support. I make the motion to express the Recreation Committee's support for this town petition.
Okay, so I will second that. So then a roll call vote. Hanson, yes.
Okay, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Shaner, yes.
All right. There you go.
All right. Thank you guys. And I appreciate you moving me up as well. Thank you so
course.
much. Have a great night. Appreciate
All
it.
right,
Take
thanks,
care.
Lisa.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Lisa.
Okay. All right, so then Travis, back to your, or I guess we can jump to Christina, right? So we can let her go.
Yeah, we had two heavy topics, so this should be a light, fun topic.
That's right.
Sorry to make you wait so long. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you guys for having me. I wanted to just give a quick summer night recap. It was a really great event with overwhelming positive feedback. Wanted to thank the DPW, police and fire department. The event went very smoothly without any issues. We had Friends of Southborough Rec and some summer staff help out with some parking and things like that. Great turnout for some food trucks. Everyone seemed to have a small line at any given time, which is great, and ended with an amazing fireworks show. So, and a smooth exit from all attendees. So really a great event. Hope you guys were able to come out to that. From a program perspective, just wanted to share the numbers from last year compared to this year for the fall programming. Last year, from July 15th to September 9th, which is the last date I ran these numbers, we had 260 from last year, which included 38 cross-country participants. This year, we had, from that same time frame, 284 without the cross-country program. We are finalizing in the next few days a revamped Trotter Running Club that we're very excited about. It'll look similar to the previous model of cross-country, adding some new components, focusing on individual growth and personal goal setting. And our hope is to have the practices coincide with the Trotter School late bus, and conclude with the Friends of Southborough Recreation Gobble Wobble 5K run on Thanksgiving morning. We do feel confident that we can run this recreation club that aligns better with our department mission. And we're excited to share this news with the Trotter community. Once we're ready in the next few days, we'll send that out via our Facebook page, an email blast to all of our MyRec users in that age group, and also the Trotter communication channels. Some new and exciting programs we have for the fall. We're partnering with New England School of Protocol to run some children's and teens social conversational groups, teen interviewing prep, some holiday dining etiquette classes that we received some great referrals from Shrewsbury and Northborough recreation departments that their community participate in these programs. So a great one there. And we're going to be offering some golf lessons through Southborough Golf Learning Center for both children and adults. We have some fun community coloring contests for Halloween and winter holidays for different age groups. And Travis's wonderful idea for a house decorating contest, calling for residents to register their home to participate in a community-wide event, creating a town map that we can share with everyone around the holidays and have the community vote for the best dressed house. So some new and exciting programs there. Let's see. We started RAP today. Our numbers look a little similar to last year. RAP 1 is always a little bit slower in terms of our other sessions, likely because of the overwhelming emails that parents get at the start of the school year and starting to juggle the new fall extracurricular activities. We're going to be spending some extra time focusing on NERI this year. That has been a tricky one, just given the age group. So Travis and I will be attending the Parents' Night on Thursday, September 26th, speaking with Kathleen Valenti. She has welcomed us to speak to this specific age group about what programs we have, and we'll have a table there for families to stop by and share their thoughts on what programs we can offer that might be interesting to their Trotter students. Future sessions will bring back some favorites with proven successful vendors, beloved teachers, as well as some community-based programs that we offer at Woodward, like So Studio, and bringing those to the NERI students as well. So RAP 2 will run October 21st through Thanksgiving break. So while we're only at week 1, we're already looking ahead to what other programs we can offer. I did want to also share an update about Rec Connect. This is our adaptive and inclusive program that we're partnering with Shrewsbury and Northborough Rec departments. This past Saturday, we had the Sneaker Brom at Shrewsbury Senior Center. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was really well attended. We had wide representation from surrounding communities. We were able to market the event through Facebook, our past Rec Connect participants, Southborough Library, New England Center for Children, and then broader advertising went out through the Shrewsbury and Northborough networks as well. So we're really excited, already planning next year's event, but wanted to share the upcoming October programs we have that we have also shared with the Northborough, Southborough Parents Advisory Council, as this is a group that can utilize these services as it really pertains to the demographic there with their inclusive programming from ages 4 to 22. So we have Family Science Night available for families of all ages. Registration for that is through Northborough Rec, and that event is October 10th from 6:30 to 8. And then we'll be hosting Gilbankian's Florist for a terrarium class for ages 16 and up on October 9th, and that will be at Southborough Senior Center from 6 to 7:30. Flying right through things, fall events we have coming up. Big ones are Heritage Day. We're actually reaching out to past vendors and parade participants to make sure they have the opportunity to be involved in this year's event. And it's gearing to go, to look like a really great crowd. Next up, we have Trunk or Treat, which we're again partnering with Southborough Fire Association for Saturday, October 26th. Parade and costume contest will begin at 3, trunk or treat at 4, dinner and food truck at 5, and a movie will begin at dusk. So we'll definitely be adding on to the event this year, making it more an inclusive program throughout the evening so that we can have more community participation. We will be reaching out to community members seeking candy donations to help offset those individual costs of participating trunks with a successful event. In years past, we've had about 500 plus attendees. So it'll be great to have folks kind of contribute to that we can distribute to all of the different trunks there. And in 2022, we saw a great turnout for the drive-in style movie. So we're really excited to bring that back. I think that's it for now. More stuff to come in October at certain wellness days that we're looking to kind of add on and complement the school year calendar. So we're really excited. We have some great summer staff that are looking to help us out with some of the staffing for those things, and we're really excited to get them back in with the awesome young residents that we had participate in our summer camp program. Did I get it all in?
I think you got it all. That was tremendous. It's hard to believe that it's Christina's first fall and she's already adding wrinkles. She's doing a tremendous job. We're excited to see the fall. If anyone want to come to Trunk or Treat and join us on that day and decorate their trunk, feel free. We'd love to have some commissioners there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Christina. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
thank
It all sounds amazing.
Any questions I can answer for anyone?
Great job.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, have a great night, guys.
Thank you,
Right.
Christina.
Right.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
All right, we're flying now.
So capital, right?
Yes, capital. So yeah, you guys all got the email I sent you guys yesterday. I would have sent it out with the agenda, I think on Thursday, but I had a really good sit down with DPW yesterday, and they added a few tweaks and a few wrinkles. I can share the screen if you just give me 1 second. There we go. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. Does anybody have any, before we take a dive into a little bit of everything, does anybody have any questions, observations off of the email that I sent yesterday for the capital plan?
I mean, was the Choate project always 3.2 million?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I think we asked last time, we asked for the updated pricing and only went up by like 150,000 or whatever.
Mhm.
So yes, if we went all in on Choate and turfed everything, that was the all-in price for the so multiple fields and the diamond. That being said, that is like the high end of the number. So that's what I had Travis put in the high end number there. We could
Okay.
always pare it back. We could decide to do, yeah. So like the entire facility would be turfed in this scenario.
Okay, and this is
And we
like
have-
all the way to like the driveway up to the
There
fire.
would be no grass left, basically.
There would be
It
no
would all be
grass.
turf. Yep. Yeah.
And yeah, DPW was aware. I think they had expressed the only concern they really had is just long-term thinking and like, okay, turfs nowadays you get 20 years, 15 is what you're pretty much under warranty, and then 20, hopefully most people get. So they just had some concern down the line, and just to make sure, try to be a little more forward thinking down the line if that were to come down. But they were obviously from a maintenance standpoint, it's a little bit easier. You have no irrigation, you have no mowing, no fertilization, no irrigation. That's all taken care of. And then usually traditionally with turf fields, people can get on that field sooner than they could a natural surface in the spring.
Yep. And you're still collecting use fees for renting out those fields as well.
Yes.
That's correct. I mean, with the user fees, I believe, and I could be, Jen, I could be incorrect in this, but I believe the user fees go back to the town, the per person
So
user.
in general, right now they go back to the general fund of the town. But I would if we were to turf Choate, I would think we should treat it kind of like we did 9/11, that it has its own funding. Because if you turf that, we could charge out of town residents higher rates, and we could start building back up the money to be able to replace the turf when it needs to be replaced in 15, 20 years, things like that. So I think if we go that route for that particular site, we should change how we work with those user fees. They should come back to the site and not go into general fund. Because the thought is that we collect the fees, they go back to general fund, and then DPW is given a budget to spend out of the general fund to go do all of the maintenance.
Yeah.
So the thought is that the fees eventually make it back into DPW's hand to be able to mow and everything that they need to do. So in this case, if it were a turf field, it would have a different requirement. We could do that differently.
We should replicate the 9/11 revolving fund.
Exactly. Yes.
It's there to either fund and or to fund any necessary interest payments on the bonding, which is what the 9/11 fund does. But also it should be there to help build up the replacement
Exactly.
funds for the replacement.
Yeah. And I think I think that's totally justified and warranted. I think for perspective too, I think we pay RAD and we contract that out to do the annual maintenance, and they usually give us a report with that. And I think it's a little over $2,000. So the annual maintenance is not that steep either. That's the big one. And the only, Jen, just to give you and the commission as well, some perspective, I will highlight the things that the DPW added that they wanted added in here. We pushed the things out based off of their feedback. The Calander field apparently has a irrigation control power head that is actually located on a resident property. So they asked us if we could include that in our capital in 27 or 28.
Okay.
I don't know how the commission feels about that. And the other big one they had is obviously, and they thought it might strengthen the argument for getting it, but they have an aerator that runs about $38,000. I'm not sure if the commission's aware of it and how they feel about it, but they had inquired about maybe trying to share that cost because the aerator is specifically purchased for our playing fields. It's not used for any other grass field or park. It would be specifically used for our playing fields. So they wanted to see about possibly sharing costs through revolving fund or capital request for that aerator. They said when going through the capital process, and it is true, anytime you have a shared cost with 2 or 3 departments, it generally it falls a little more in favor.
This is not the
And I
first time they've asked.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was a history. I'm just sharing
okay. I
what
think we tried to go through last year asking for this, and they got I think, I don't quote me on this. I think they got declined by Capital. Like it
Okay.
didn't make it on, even
Yeah.
though we were in agreement that like, look, we need to be investing in our fields and all that. So
Yep. Totally get it. I didn't know if it was
Yeah.
worth another shot. That's a little further down the line. And then the third one, the last one they had, if you go back up to tennis courts, the Mooney tennis court, Chris said that the fence that is around that perimeter might need to be replaced in the next year or 2 or 3. So that was just a placeholder. But those were the 3 big ones that big ones-ish, I guess you could say, that DPW had just had some recommendations on.
I don't have a problem putting the aerator on the list. I mean, we
Yeah.
can cross that bridge when we get there. The
Yeah.
question that always comes up is, how long do we really need to buy one? Or
Yeah.
can you rent one for a weekend and be done with it? Like that's and I don't think we've ever gotten that answer, but I'm not opposed to putting it on the list for consideration.
Yeah. I mean,
What are they doing now? Like,
Yeah,
are they renting one or?
I'm terrible at explaining because I'm not a lawn expert by any means. They have one, but I think it's more used for residential, and it's only like 24 inches wide, so it takes a lot longer. The one they want to get is 2 or 3 times as wide, and it has a multi-prong, like it spreads seed as well as top dressing, so it kind of checks a few boxes as well. It would enable them to do more aerating quick and more of the fields in a quicker fashion. And from what I've been told and what they told me is that these will last 60, 70, 80 years. They said the shelf life is, I think they said that there's still ones that golf courses use and everything that are from the 50s, 60s, 70s. They haven't changed the models either. They're all the same since back then.
hey Travis, real quick, we've got Kristen in the audience. Can you just bring her
Oh
over?
yeah, of course. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
When you share the screen, I can't.
Yeah. I didn't know, but she texted me, so now I see her there.
There you go. And obviously the big one that you guys see is Choate. That is the biggest expense. That is the most up-to-date number. Me and Jen had and actually I circled back with Activitas and had them redo the whole estimate for the field. And that 3.2 you see is all turf field for both soccer fields and the baseball, softball field. We did ask them to break it out what portion of that 3.2 is CPA eligible and which is not. And 1.92 of that is CPA eligible, and 1.34 would be a capital. So that's kind of where we line up.
So the last time we had talked about this, or maybe it was, yeah, I think it was the last time we had talked about this. I think there was some mention that this was like an all-in cost, but also included some maybe like discretionary items like a storage shed, and I'm not quite sure what else might have been quote unquote discretionary. Does this number include some of the things like the storage shed, or is this just the turf?
This is all inclusive.
Yeah.
So this is like, this number is kind of like worst case scenario. If we went all in on this, that's what we're looking at. So the notion is like, we'd have to go through this and figure out what do we actually want. There's a question like, so this picture on the screen, the smaller field on the bottom left, maybe we don't need to turf that. Maybe that part stays as just natural grass and we only turf the right to be able to get the big soccer field and the diamond turfed. So those are questions and like decisions we'd have to make. So to go down this route, but like these are questions where like I would want to know what soccer thinks. Like, does soccer want this turfed? Would this make them excited? Do they ready to get on board and help us figure out how to get this done and how to fundraise? or like baseball and softball. Like, what is softball going to think about this turfed infield? You know, like, what does that mean for them? Have they ever played on one before? Do they like it? Do they not? So I think it just like, so this design, the way we do it with Activitas is like, they give us like, this is the Cadillac. This is all the things, all the options, all the prices. So we know what we're looking at. And then we
Okay.
can start to work through with our user groups and what we like, where we kind of want to land, what we feel like is a good budget, and kind of back out of stuff. So,
Okay. And
Yep.
what we'd have to, with all in, what we'd have to fundraise for is the 1.343.
so yeah, so the 1.9 we could ask of CPC. No idea if we get it, if they even have it, but like the way
Okay, so
turf
that
works-
conversation hasn't like
Nope.
been vetted 100% yet
Nope. Nope.
either. Okay.
Nope, we haven't gotten
It's
to them.
eligible yet. We still have to go and make
Yeah.
those.
Jen did task me with trying to talk to youth soccer and youth baseball and softball, but I just, between Activitas and getting that squared away, I just haven't had the time to circle in with them to try to see if they would be in favor. And I'm happy to do that. Just need a little more time. And
That's
unfortunately,
fine. Or if like you want to do the initial reach out to start get the like, what is their initial reaction to this? Then we could always have them join one of our next meetings to talk through it more. So
yeah. But
Yep.
if we had to submit or vote on a capital tonight, would we vote on basically this capital plan, or would we vote pending input from youth soccer or youth baseball, softball? Because I know that's what we're up against right now. I believe is that we need to have something to Jason and capital soonish. That was the hard part.
No, I think I would, my opinion, Jen, would be is that we vote on what we think the best
Yep.
budget is. The budget's subject to approval and review by the capital committee. And it's not an approval of the actual line items in the budget. Each of the line items have to go through their own particular approval, subject to whatever conditions and controls that the capital committee has put in place. So I think it's called a budget, but it's really more of an outline or a guide at some point.
Kind of like a strategic plan, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um,
And I think that'll allow me some extra time to figure out if they would be in favor of it as well.
I mean, again, the whole reason we're having this conversation is because we were asked, I think, to pull it forward, right, Travis, because of some of the other stuff going on. Otherwise, this wasn't really on the radar screen for now. Like we were going to have more, we were going to have more time to sort of think it through, but we're sort of trying to comply with the request.
Yeah, I think it was under next year's capital request, if I remember correctly. So we were upping this a year to comply with that request. Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know it goes all the way to 26, but I did try to even it out so it's an equal amount-ish every year. I mean, with the exception of Choate, the Choate Turf project in the first year in 26, it stays relatively level as best I could.
Mm-hmm.
And we did include a facility study in 27. Because that's about at the 10-year mark from when we had that done. We did include Liberty in there. So yeah, so it's if anything, like long term, you want to have any placeholders that I'm not thinking of, and obviously this is a working document, like Don said, it's an outline, so it's probably going to change. But no, the three playgrounds, the big playgrounds that we oversee, Fayetteville, South Union, and Town Hall, are in decent shape. So no capital dollars there.
Oh, I know. One thing I was actually thinking of as I was looking at this, line 14, Woodward Playground.
Yes.
I think the schools are supposed to have their three playgrounds on their capital budgets, and we don't have those on our budget anymore. But that might be something we wanted to double check with the capital committee.
I can definitely double check. I heard, I mean, this is all from what
Yep.
I understand and what I've heard is that since we use, and again, the relationship with the school is definitely unique. We're like who owns what, who
Yeah.
takes what. I think from what I gathered from what I've talked to the schools with is that since we use that Woodward Elementary School for our summer camp location, we have, I think that was on our capital plan, but I'm
Okay.
happy to circle back and talk to Brian.
Or we can leave it there and just ask Jason if it really needs to stay on ours or should be on theirs.
Okay, we can definitely do
but-
that.
Okay. Because I know I thought they took the inspections of the school playgrounds off of ours. Like we don't inspect the school ones anymore. They inspect their own.
That's correct. Yep.
So-
We just did
okay,
our
all
inspection for the three that we did in late August. So we should get those
Okay.
results back soon-ish, but you are correct.
Okay. I mean, like whatever, the money all still comes from the town. So it's just where do they want it recorded?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay. Okay. And then I guess the other thing is like, so when we have to meet with Capital, we're probably gonna want someone from DPW there with us then. Like, and maybe that is, I'm assuming Chris probably gave us most of this information. Because like, so Calander Field, like that the fact that the irrigation control and power is on a private residence property, like that, like there's many questions like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? Like, when did it happen? Calander has just been like one thing after another. So we're going to need an answer for that one because that question will come because I even sit there wondering how that even happened. So, yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions about this or like, do we feel comfortable putting this forward and sending it over to the Capital Committee as like, this is our draft plan?
I would be okay with that, Jen.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any other questions or thoughts on this or we're good? Okay. So then, I mean, I think we're good, Travis. I think you can share this
Okay.
with Jason, send it over.
And Jen and Commission, like next steps. So I'll submit this to Capital. I presume then we go to Capital.
Yeah. They usually ask us to join one of their sessions. So, yep.
And what will happen at Capitol? Like, how do we answer questions about what we're asking for Choate? Like, we don't have a lot of answers yet, other than this is like the apex. But will they ask us questions and details about Choate and what we're really asking the town residents to pay based upon what we're actually looking to move forward and do? I honestly, I'm not trying to be difficult. I really just don't understand.
So they're not going to get into the weeds about it. I think so typical conversations have been like, do we really need to do this now? Could we move it a year? Do you pull it forward? Do you push it back? Because Capital is basically taking a spreadsheet like this from like every department
Yeah.
and then lining it up and then trying to smooth it out.
Yeah.
So I guess in this case, I mean, like they approached us and asked us if we could pull it ahead, like that because right now financially might be a better time for the town to pull this ahead and take this on than in a couple of years when NERI hits. So I'm going to like, we're not going to have as many answers. I mean, we have an entire study of everything here, right down to like line items of all the prices and costs that we can share. So like anyone can see what exactly the options are. But then I think, so I'm looking at it as like going through this next checkpoint with Capital. If they are behind this and supportive and say, yes, financially, it makes sense for us to pull this ahead and try to do this in the next fiscal year or two, then that will basically trigger us to do all the work to figure out what exactly it is we're going to do, get all the input and start refining it to get to a better price or a more, not better, just
Like a refined plan, like.
right, a refined plan. of what we really believe.
This is how much CPA is gonna pay for.
Yes,
This is how
and then
much
we
we're
look- yep.
asking for residents to pay for. This is how much we're hoping to fundraise and kind
Yep.
of like that. Those are kind of like the way I as a resident would want to think about this is like, how much are you
Yeah.
asking me to pay for this? And how much is coming from other funding sources?
Yeah, we just need
Yes.
more time to refine the plan. This is a good idea. And then
Right,
I
right.
can throw the data behind it too. Obviously, it shows the lit, one of the lit fields. So as far as participation and hours in use, it's going to be on the higher side. So yeah, there's
Yep.
data that we
Yep.
can throw behind it too that'll help the argument.
Okay, so the capital review, I didn't know this. So it's not that we're asking for this money right now. We're asking for capital to say and give us the go ahead to refine the plan to the next level of detail.
Or yeah, capital basically helps try to helps corral the budgets. So I think with going to them, we'll get a kind of some initial thoughts and feedback from them. Like, do they like this, or are they have concerns? And then as we work through more about what the expenses are and costs are, they will want to know, especially big projects, they tend to get more involved at the line item level of like, where is the cost actually going, so they can help us to be able to communicate that better to the town and the residents. But something like this, it will be a warrant article. So if it makes it through capital and select board and we really are moving this forward and we can get our stuff together, it would most likely turn into a warrant article on next year's town meeting in April.
Okay.
That then the people would have to vote and say, yes, I want to pay for this thing. And
Okay.
then it would be funded and it would start.
And then
the
it would be
following
funded.
year.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Thank
And
you.
I
So
could
this
be
is
wrong.
also really preliminary, and I still feel like we're testing the waters here a little bit. I'm not I could almost see it going either way, right? Just talking about adding more money on right now with everyone staring down NERI numbers, and it's a little bit scary, but but if it's the right thing to do now versus waiting 3 years and then trying to do it. So
yeah, I think capital's that first wave, and they just look at all the pieces of the puzzle, and if they feel like it's in the budget and in the capital plan and they can do it, then they move it to the next phase, and then at that point where you're fine, get more definitive answers that people might ask.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, well that takes care of that.
Yep.
And I will let everybody know next steps when I get them.
Okay.
And Christina touched on the fall registration update, so we don't really need to hit on that. And Fayetteville parking update I put on there, but Mark's working on a answer for that, so I'm hoping.
Okay.
Jen, I know I shared some information with you too, but we'll hopefully have an answer with that. I know Mark's working on it.
Okay. All right, then. I don't think we have anything else, right?
That's it. That's all the big stuff.
All right. Anything else anyone wanted to raise? All right. So then I just want our meeting minutes. So I sent them around from the 22nd of August. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2024.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Hanson, yes.
Okay, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Shaner, yes.
All right. So then can we just schedule next month's meeting real quick?
That would be awesome.
So it's typically second Tuesday, second Tuesday, right? And I think that's right after Heritage Day. So that would be October.
That was the 14th.
Yeah. So second Tuesday would be the 15th. I know I'm actually out of the country that day.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jen, for the high school soccer games are on every Tuesday through Halloween. So if there's any way for the month of October, we could do
we can do that.
A Wednesday or Monday or whatever, a Monday or a Wednesday instead, if that works for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amenable. The 21st is my birthday, so I prefer not to meet that day if we could.
That's okay.
23rd, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, 22nd, 23rd. Yeah, I could do 23rd. Does Wednesday, October 23rd for work for everyone else?
I can do the 23rd.
All right. Then that sounds good.
Thank you. Sorry about that. The soccer season will be over by Halloween, I think, so.
No worries.
I think
Priorities,
I think I got the permit running all the way to the 6th, though. I mean, that's youth soccer. I don't know if you're at the high school level, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, sorry. The first part of this meeting, I'm sorry, my kids were running around like crazy people, so I apologize for that.
It's fine. We've all been there. We all have it.
That's where
We
my
drag our
camera
kids
was
to
off.
everything.
That's
Yep.
why.
It makes the rest of us feel like it's okay because ours do it too. So all right. So then we'll go ahead and adjourn 8:20. We'll see you guys. And whenever we hear from Capitol about that meeting, we'll let you know and we'll post it so anyone who wants to attend can attend. So
You got it.
cool.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks,
Great.
Jen.
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everybody.
All right, thank you guys. Good night.
Bye.